Support for Great Lakes Now update is provided by the Fred A. and Barbara M. Erb Family Foundation, the Joyce Foundation, the Ohio Byways Collection, Northeast Ohio Regional Sewer District, ArcelorMittal, the Generation Foundation, and by Cleveland Metro Parks. Great Lakes Now is a co-production of Detroit Public TV and WVIZ PBS Idea Stream.
Welcome to Great Lakes Now. I'm Christy McDonald. The health of the Great Lakes is not only scientific, it's political. We're in Cleveland, Ohio, the site of Great Lakes Week and also a battleground state in this presidential election. Among the problems, the studies, and the success stories, advocates want to know where the candidates stand on Great Lakes health and if it will be an administration priority. Today, both campaigns had a chance to weigh in. The Romney camp, a no-show. Only Carol Browner, formerly of the Obama administration, came.
The president does understand the importance of the Great Lakes. He is from this region and I think has provided really important leadership and will continue to provide that leadership.
Will President Obama be able to protect Great Lakes funding?
The president each year in his budget thus far has protected and sought money for Great Lakes restoration. Obviously, this is going to be a very difficult conversation that the country is going to engage in, but I think it's fair to say when you look at his record, his commitment has been very, very strong. You know, how this issue gets resolved and how individual cuts or broad cuts are managed will be different depending on who wins this election. I mean, you know, people like to say elections matter. When it comes to an issue like this, elections really matter.
And elections do matter. Joining me now for more on the politics of it all is Andy Bucksbaum, the Regional Executive Director of the National Wildlife Federation, and Chris Evans from the editorial board of the Cleveland Plain Dealer. Gentlemen, thanks so much for joining me on Great Lakes Now.
Oh, it's nice to be here, Christy.
All right, so let's kick it off. You invited both someone from the Obama administration and from the Romney campaign. And Andy, the Romney campaign didn't show. Would you just chalk it up to logistics, or by not coming here and speaking at Great Lakes Week, is that actually speaking volumes?
I hope it's not speaking volumes. Let's just start right away by clarifying. Democrats and Republicans, liberals and conservatives, everyone supports the Great Lakes. In our region, millions of people depend on the Great Lakes for drinking water, for recreation, for jobs, for their quality of life. And you'd have to be nuts to be a presidential candidate and not be concerned what people were thinking about in Ohio and Michigan. So we know that there is bipartisan support for the Great Lakes at every level. And that's what's given the Great Lakes progress so far. We've had enormous progress in cleaning up the Great Lakes in the last 4 years because of that bipartisan support and because of presidential leadership. So we hope that this doesn't signal anything about what Governor Romney's commitment on the Great Lakes. But the jury's out. We don't know what that commitment is.
The jury is out, Chris, and I know you've been covering it, and the Romney campaign is all over Ohio. I mean, the ads are on television.
Yeah, they're everywhere. Yeah.
But what have you heard so far about where they stand on Great Lakes issues?
Absolutely nothing. We had Ohio Treasurer Josh Mandel in for an endorsement interview last week, and his campaign has three priorities: jobs, 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 and he's traveled the state shilling that. And he was talking about being in Toledo, and I asked him, well, I mean, you must have heard people worry about algal blooms, Asian carp, and the threat that they present to the economy up there. And he didn't know what I was talking about. I mean, he had never heard about it.
Well, now we can't say that he speaks for the Romney campaign, but it could be indicative in what maybe perhaps the Republican Party is looking at here. Well,
but again, I mean, even if Romney, I mean, he should be aware of it, or his handler should be aware of it, because I think it's one area where Obama is vulnerable. I mean, the way he's handled the Asian carp situation is deplorable. You know, I mean, he's appointed this carp czar, John Goss, who's a nice guy, but is basically an apologist for an administration that isn't doing anything.
Well, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers right now, they're doing this study, which is going to be done in about a year and change, right?
Yes, but I mean, they've supposedly been working on this since 2009. So what have they been doing for 3 years? And we had a study that was presented. Andy, you would probably know. It was an international group. It was Canadian and as well as American stakeholders. They presented a study in February that showed how you could do the hydrological separation of the Mississippi and Great Lakes basins in a way that would actually enhance the Chicago sanitary and ship canal.
And kind of change the thing. But when we're talking about doing a project like that, we're talking about money, and the funds have to come from Congress, as well as the funding does for the Great Lakes Restoration Initiative. I want to talk about, and we talked about how many people actually support this. Let's go ahead and take a look at some numbers, a poll that Healing Our Waters did. Should the federal government continue its current funding for Great Lakes restoration? 72% of people in Ohio said yes, they should continue the funding. What I found interesting is if we go ahead and take a look at who made those votes, 63% were Republicans who said yes, let's continue the funding, and 79% Democrats. So you're really, it's a bipartisan issue here, especially in Ohio.
It's hugely bipartisan, and Ohio is extremely committed. Lake Erie is the heart of much of Ohio, and the major cities are there. The people, the recreation is there, the boating industry is there. There are so many jobs and so many people dependent on Lake Erie that the health of Lake Erie really helps drive the health of not just Ohio ecologically and the people's health, but also the health of the economy. So this is an absolute critical issue for any presidential candidate. You know, President Obama sent Carol Browner to speak to our conference. She's world-renowned. She came despite the changed circumstances that, you know, we all thought there would be a representative from the Romney campaign here, and there wasn't. And she came and continued to speak despite the changed circumstances. I think that speaks to the president's commitment to the Great Lakes. This has been a Great Lakes president. We have differences over some things like the hydrologic separation barrier, but President Obama has a remarkable track record in unprecedented levels of Great Lakes funding and commitment. We want to know what he's going to do in the next 4 years if he's reelected. Even more so, we have a pretty good idea from his track record that's going to be positive. We don't know where Governor Romney is, and him not sending somebody today is a real problem. We are hoping that in the next 2 months we're going to be able to pursue both candidates, particularly Governor Romney, to find out where he is on these key issues.
Governor Romney is going to be in Ohio tomorrow?
Apparently, according to Andy, yeah.
And do you think he's got to address this somewhere along the line?
Well, absolutely. I mean, I don't see how you can. I mean, it's a $10 billion a year tourism industry. 3 million people, I think, get their drinking water from Lake Erie. Thousands of jobs. I mean, it isn't just a great natural resource. I mean, it's an economic generator.
Is it hard to get people's attention, especially in an election year, to focus on the environment when they do have the economy that they're focusing on? Now, international relations has come into in the forefront in the last couple of days.
Well, I think you know, the environment and the economy are you're talking about the same thing. I mean, it's not just an environmental issue; it's an economic issue. And you know, for Romney to think that he can talk to voters here or woo voters here without addressing the challenges that Lake Erie faces and the whole freshwater ecosystem faces, it's not going to work.
Andy, I'm going to give you the last word.
What Chris says is absolutely right. The Great Lakes are an economic issue as well as an ecological one. 1.5 million jobs in this region are tied up with the Great Lakes. It's billions of dollars in payroll. The algal blooms that are making people sick and making it so people can't go swimming are also decimating the boating industry. You can't pull these apart. So if you're interested in jobs, you better be interested in Lake Erie and the Great Lakes.
And also restoration. People are actually going back to work doing these restoration projects as well in construction. Thank you so much. Chris Evans, Andy Bucksbaum for joining us on Great Lakes Now. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Christy. Thank you.
Well, you know, a big concern for the Great Lakes is pollution from aging sewer systems around the basin. But a massive overhaul of combined sewer overflow here in Ohio is making a difference. Rick Jackson has the story.
The Environmental Protection Agency keeps a long list of cities, each with a gushing problem. The list has 772 names, big cities and small towns. Their problem? They've all got combined sewers.
That is the sanitary sewer that carries the water from your toilet and connects to the storm drain. When there's a big rain, they combine. The sewer system can't handle it. The excess pours into the river or the lake. Gross. But that is a combined sewer overflow. And for the health of Lake Erie, we better do something about it.
So if it's raining, it's a big deal. Here in Cleveland, we're spending $3 billion over the next 25 years just to fix it. $3 billion going into one big hole in the ground. Well, actually 7 big holes. East of downtown, they're digging the first of these, called the Euclid Creek Tunnel. There's a rock chopping machine at the bottom of that shaft, cutting a tunnel 24 feet in diameter and 3 miles long beneath Lake Erie.
Just has a massive cutting head on it with a lot of teeth on it, or bits, that will rotate slowly and start to pulverize and chew into the rock.
That's some of the rock after it's been chewed up.
So when these are fully erected, they will be 360 degrees.
They've got 2 more years to go before this tunnel can act as a giant holding tank for sewer overflow until the nearby treatment plant can process it.
I think that this project is amazing, but it's going down below where no one will ever see it, but all will benefit from it in the end by improved water quality.
As big as this tunnel is, it can't hold all the combined overflows. So the sewer district needs everyone throughout the watershed to get involved and to help.
The best way to do that, think about this simple concept, perviousness. While most things in the city are impervious, pervious things soak up the rainwater before it hits the storm drain.
The question of perviousness and imperviousness is just about pavement. You know, when human beings move into a place, the first thing we do is we pave things and we build structures. And so when the rain falls, it can't follow the sort of natural pattern of soaking in and returning to the waterways. Instead, it cheats off into the sewer system.
Urban planner Terry Schwartz is in the Lower Kinsman neighborhood, the Forgotten Triangle, where there aren't many neighbors left. It's a problem area for causing sewer overflows. It's so impervious around here. With all the grass where houses used to be, you would think that would help catch more of the rainwater. But you'd be wrong.
But unfortunately, the demolition process leads to a lot of soil compaction. So even though we have more and more vacant land, a lot of it isn't really helping in terms of the runoff.
Solutions are in the works, creating what's called the green infrastructure. Here, urban farms break up the compacted soil, catch some of the rainwater, and make food instead of sewer overflows. Over at University Circle, a new hotel is growing up. Green infrastructure? It's in there.
So this is the pervious paver that is being used for the driveway and the parking lot area here.
Pervious pavers let the water get down to the sand underneath. That's an estimated 1 million gallons of water that won't get into storm drains from this 1-acre site every year.
You know, it's sort of a smarter design as opposed to just throwing down some asphalt and striping it and putting cars on it.
Help cutting down on overflows isn't confined to downtown. 5 miles as the crow flies from Lake Erie in South Euclid, an urban marsh now helps to cut down on runoff. 5 years ago, this was an ugly stormwater retention basin. Now, it's a green infrastructure showcase. You can see it from Victoria and Norbert Cohn's tea house.
Before the wetlands was developed, it was an apocalyptical wasteland of concrete and field grass. And in the summer, it was burnt out. It was just barren. It didn't seem to make sense to people why it was there or what it was doing.
This is the old Langerdale catch basin, and it would overflow and flood neighborhoods, ruining stuff in people's basements. The city decided it better do something.
And the idea came up of an urban marsh, to actually look at how to use nature and use those techniques to actually clean the water tributary and handle the stormwater management.
You feel like you're in the country now. You're in the woods, and you're in the city.
The urban marsh is a lovely piece of perviousness the sewer district wants to see more of. Plus, it's adding to the economy. Property values around these types of green spaces typically go up. And Victoria's Tea House, well, you'd better make a reservation for next year because it's booked up through this season. Makes you wonder why everyone just doesn't go pervious.
We have to do what we have to do to solve problems. But the hope is we can create solutions that blend in with community objectives. Whether it's urban farms or other economic development opportunities, there's ways to do this. Control stormwater, but still create something for the community, and we're going to look aggressively at that aspect.
That was Rick Jackson reporting. Now the Great Lakes Week is over. What kind of action can we expect in the year to come? Joining me now is Dr. Patrick Doran from the Nature Conservancy in Michigan and Gary Wilson, a commentator for the Great Lakes Echo from Chicago. Gentlemen, how are you?
Great.
Rounding third base.
Yes.
Yes, I know we have wrapped up the week. So now it's time to sit back and take a look at everything that we've seen this week, talking about science and plans for the future, and say, what have we learned from this and what are we going to take away? I'm going to start with you, Patrick.
I just got to go to lunch and listen to Jerry Dennis speak. Jerry Dennis, author, Living Great Lakes, and I think his new book is The Windward Shore. And sometimes I like to sit and reflect and kind of, what do you hear people saying? What are the trends you say? Or, you can talk to people and say, what's in their checkbook? That's where they really spend their money. You look at their checkbook. And he told the story about how 10 years ago he would go to college campuses or high schools and talk to students, and there'd be 20 people to show up. Now, and they really would be like, I don't know what, Great Lakes, huh? But now he's going, and there's 100, 200, in some cases 600 people showing up, and they know about the Great Lakes. And they're asking questions. They're bringing questions with them about the Great Lakes. So to me, there's just that trend that the Great Lakes, it's right here in front of us. It is on the tips of our tongues. We know about it. And then I look 10 years in the future, all those people are going to be in jobs that depend upon it or jobs helping on the health of the Great Lakes. So that is exciting.
Why do you think that is, Gary? That more people, the awareness of some of the issues that Great Lakes have, and that what we're doing in our everyday lives can impact in some way, shape, or form the watershed and where we are?
Well, two things. One of it is the work of conferences like this, and even before the two Great Lakes Weeks, all the groups had their own conferences, and the Great Lakes have really been in the media for about the last 7 or 8 years now. It used to be they struggled to get, 2 paragraphs on page 87. And now the media is pretty much covering the Great Lakes. Even the New York Times has fairly regular coverage. It's not going to be in depth, but it's there. The other issue is the Asian carp. I know we're all getting tired of talking about Asian carp, but people are starting to read the Asian carp stories all the time, and that gets them occasionally to looking at other things and paying attention to the Great Lakes. So.
And those things, I think people recognizing it's not just a regional issue.
Right.
The Chicago area waterway system is things go out and things come in, right? So things go out and they get to the Midwest, they get to California, they get to Nevada. So I think people say, it's just not a regional issue. The water issue is not a regional thing.
The Sacramento Bee regularly picks up Great Lakes stories, and they do it via Associated Press. But the Sacramento Bee is about 2,000 miles from the Great Lakes. So,
And so the awareness is really out there. Let me ask about action versus study. A lot of studies in science and things have been revealed here this week. Do you find, though, that now with some of the government agencies and especially with the environmental groups, it's now more focused on action and what can be done in terms of restoration projects instead of just sitting back and studying the problems?
I think this is really a time of action. I think we've seen, this past year especially, and I think, when we come back hopefully next year and the next year after that, we're going to be talking about all the great work that has been accomplished, not that's in process, but what has been accomplished. But I also want to step back and defend again. I'm a scientist at heart. I am also do a lot of conservation planning. It has to be adaptive, and it's a cycle. It's not just a linear thing of I study and I plan and then I go do and then I go home. It all has to be adaptive, and if we miss, if we gap, if we stop some of that monitoring money for a year or 2 or 10 years, then 10 years down the future, we have a big hole and we don't know exactly what's going on. So all of these components of conservation, right? It's the continuum of conservation. It's the science, it's the planning, it's the action, it's the funding, it's the stakeholders in action. That all of that has to be in play at all the time.
Would you agree?
I'm going to take a slight exception to my esteemed colleague here. We have definitely made progress on the action front, but as I listen to the various seminars, I still hear a lot of talk about process. I was listening to a high-ranking official the other day, and if I could take collaboration out of her vocabulary, I would. There's nothing wrong with collaboration. I'm all for collaboration. Collaboration is a process, though. It's not the result.
Is it hard to put a price tag on certain things when we talk about restoration of the Great Lakes? It seems that it's hard for people to wrap their head around and say, okay, how much did you pay for this? How much did you pay for this? How much did you pay for this? And what are we getting back in terms for our money? Is it now going to be the next step to explain to people that it's not always easy to measure the return on what we're spending?
I think it is. I think it's a double-edged sword here of sometimes you have to put it in that language. A report was just released on aquatic invasive species control, and you put millions and millions of dollars out there on the plate and say this is what it costs us. You have to do that to get it on people's radar screen. Those numbers aren't 100% correct, right? There's a little bit of error around them, but it puts it in order of magnitude to get the right attention, to put it in the right stream of thought. But you do get in trouble because that's not exact, and some of the benefits you're going to get are really hard to put a dollar value on, right? Your aesthetic beauty, your spiritual beauty, your cultural benefits, those things you really can't put a dollar on, but they do contribute to the health of place, the sense of place, drawing people to this region to live and work and recreate.
And I would say also timeline as well. It's hard to say that in a year, we got this area cleaned up and everything's going to be fine.
I would say the exact same thing. We have to have measures that say, some activity-based measures, right? So did you spend the dollars, did you restore the acres? But then we have to think a couple years down the road, what benefits do we get out? Do we really do the restoration we hope to do? And you have to be able to report all along the stream, because sometimes the governmental reports do make what'd you do this year? And I have to be able to tell that, but then I have to step back and say, what's the real outcome I'm looking for 10, 20 years down the road?
And I think sometimes, Christy, you just have to do it because it's the right thing to do. Yes. I'll bet you 4 years ago when President Obama campaigned on the Great Lakes and putting $475 million into the budget for the first year, I don't think he probably did a real cost-benefit analysis. I think he's a smart guy, as many people are, and he just looked at the numbers and said, "This is long overdue. We're going to do this." And now you got to make good on it. People are implementing. They have to show results, but sometimes you just have to do it because it's the right thing.
I think it's the exact same thing. Dave White, the Chief of Natural Resource Conservation Service of the USDA, said that yesterday. Said, "We know what the right thing to do is. Let's just go do it." And that was powerful.
That's a great statement. So talk to me about now, what are the things that people are going to hear about in the next year? What are probably the top 3 tackling issues for Great Lakes?
I do see one as climate. It was obvious an issue here this past summer. The reason our algal blooms are one of the major contributing factors that our algal blooms were so low was because of the weather in the spring. And again, I'm not contributing that 100% to long-term climate change, but it is a idea of what's to come.
What about you, Gary? Something that
I don't have a top 3. I just think we're in a holding pattern here until after the election. Nobody's going to know where we are with funding or commitment. Obviously, the big wow was the Romney campaign with a no-show here as far as a representative to talk about their position. Things will keep moving forward, but I think in just small increments until January or February, when we know who's going to be leading the country, where the money's going to be. Those are big issues.
Last couple of seconds. Most pivotal time, one of the most pivotal times in history for the Great Lakes health?
I think so. I think we, again, have had our backs turned to the lakes. We thought of them as a dumping ground. Now I think we are full-facing those lakes. We're investing money and resources, and everybody's coming to the table.
Okay, Patrick Doran, Gary Wilson, thanks so much for joining us for Great Lakes Week and Great Lakes Now. We so appreciate it.
Thank you.
Guys. We measure the health of the Great Lakes in many ways, the water, the land around it, but we can also look to the sky.
I remember as a little kid peering out of the window with my hand stuck to the window as well.
Jen Brumfield has been a bird lover for a long time.
And I would study my field guides all night long, sometimes skip dinner. I always wanted to be out in the fields. And it was phenomenal because it was something that our family could share together.
A naturalist and illustrator with the Cleveland Metro Parks, Brumfield leads bird watching tours and also teaches programs for elementary and high school students. This area is quite simply
it's a jackpot for birds. We have anywhere from annually 250 to 300 species of birds that utilize the lakefront, utilize the shoreline, utilize our forests and our wetlands and our woodlands.
And while that means some awesome bird watching, it also opens a window to track how the wildlife is actually doing in the region.
One of the most important tools that we have for that are actually point counts. Point counts are truly the best way to try to grasp the sheer number of birds that utilize the lake. People are set up at major hot spots along the lake, major areas where birds converge during migration, and throughout the day for months on end, they'll count the number of migratory water birds, so water birds including shorebirds, gulls, terns, loons, grebes.
There's even a program called eBird from Cornell University. It allows individuals to enter count data, which is then tabulated, recorded, and mapped. Some of that data would include the majestic bald eagle.
In the past 5 years, at least one pair of nesting bald eagles within Rocky River Reservation. They are a huge hit. They're celebrity birds.
And while the bald eagle and several other species are making the Great Lakes region home, Brumfield says there's still room for improvement.
Ideally, we need more natural beachfront. We need a sort of coastal scrub area where the beach goes into a second growth and then goes into larger tracts and stands of trees to provide ample habitat, not only for migrating birds, but believe it or not, migrating butterflies and insects.
But the bottom line is, it's still a great place to see birds.
So many places along the Cleveland lakefront to go see birds. I specifically moved up here so that I have easy access to the lakefront at all times because it's just so good. Just on the lakefront here, I've had days where I've been leading Cleveland Metro Parks bird watching tours, and we've counted 250,000 red-breasted mergansers moving along the lakefront, and close to 2,800 common loons, and it just leaves everybody completely awe-inspired.
It absolutely does. And that is going to do it for Great Lakes Now. Thanks for joining us for Great Lakes Week from Cleveland. If you'd like to see any sessions you missed this week or stories that we've done, just head to greatlakesnow.org for all of the video on demand. For everyone involved with Detroit Public TV and WVIZ PBS Idea Stream in Cleveland, thanks for watching. I'm Christy McDonald.
ArcelorMittal is a global steelmaker with operations in the U.S. and Canada. Recognizing the importance of the Great Lakes to our business and communities, ArcelorMittal is a proud partner in Sustain Our Great Lakes. Sustain Our Great Lakes is led by the National Fish and Wildlife Foundation, with support from ArcelorMittal and 5 federal agencies, generating a total conservation investment of $58.6 million since 2006. SustainOurGreatLakes.org.